Hi guys. We're continuing in the same section this week of dividing polynomials, but today we're going to learn a different way to divide. So last week we used the box method to divide and we kind of skipped long division. I will be doing some long division with you during our live class sessions. But today we're going to learn a different type of division, which is called synthetic division. And in fact, your homework tonight is going to very specifically say that you have to divide using synthetic division. So let's get started. Here I have a division problem, much like we had last week. And it very specifically, again, says in the directions that we have to divide using synthetic division. The first step to dividing using synthetic division is to take your denominator, what you're dividing by, and set it equal to 0 so you can solve for x. In this problem, x is equal to +4. You're going to take that knowledge and you're going to put it in this little box. And so whatever x is equal to, you're going to put inside a little box. It's almost like a division sign, but instead of having the long part across the top, it just kind of sections that number 4 apart. Now, because this is synthetic division, it's not real division, we're not going to include everything from the original problem. We're going to really just focus on the numbers, and we'll worry about the variables later. So the next thing we're going to do, next to that little box corner, we're going to take all of the coefficients from the dividend. The dividend is the numerator, what we're dividing. So we're going to start with the x to the third, which has a coefficient of 2. Then the x squared has a coefficient of -13. The x has a coefficient of 26. And my constant is -24. So I'm taking all of my numbers. Now I just put the letters above it so you would know where the numbers were coming from and to show you that we were taking them in the same order that they appeared in. But we're not going to actually use the letters while we're doing our synthetic division. All right, guys, this is the setup. We're ready to actually divide now. On your paper, I need you to skip a line and draw an underline underneath it. So you can see I left quite a bit of space. I'm going to be putting a number in that space. And we're going to be adding straight down. Now, we're going to start on the left-hand side where the 2 is. And since the 2 doesn't have anything to add with right now, we're going to go ahead and just drop that straight below the bar. Once you get a number below the bar, you're going to multiply it by the number in the box. And that's what will go above the bar and line up with the next number. So I'm going to do 2 times this 4 from the box, and I'm going to put that underneath the -13. And then we're adding -13 plus 8 is -5. And we do it again. So you just kind of keep following this little zigzag process. So now I'm going to do the -5 times the 4 from the box, and that's -20. Next, we do 26 plus the -20, which is technically minus, right? And we get 6. Then we do 6 times the 4 from the box, and 6 times 4 is 24. And then finally, we add -24 plus 24, and we get 0. And that's it. We're done. We're ready to write our final answer right now. So again, we're just kind of zigzagging through. And our final answer is below that line. Now, I don't know if you noticed this last week, but when you get a final answer from a division problem, it's usually got 1 less on the exponents from what the original question had. And remember last week, we could also get a remainder sometimes. So when you're working with the bottom, I like to work from the right to the left. And so I'm going to start with this number 0, and I'm actually going to section it off from everything else because that's going to be my remainder. So in this problem, there is no remainder. That's kind of nice. Next, I'm going to count my way up. So normally at the end of one of these polynomials, we have our constant. So 6 is going to be my constant. And then directly in front of the constant is the letter x, and in front of that is an x squared. And again, notice that for my final answer, my exponents are 1 less than what they were from the original problem. So in the original problem, I started with an x to a third. My final answer, I'm going to have an x squared to begin. And so my final answer is 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. And this one has no remainder, so that's it. Let's do one more together just to make sure we fully understand. So here's our next example. Again, we're going to take the thing that we're dividing by, the x plus 2. We would set it equal to 0 and then solve for x. But like that's pretty easy. I'm going to do that in my head. I'm going to minus the 2 to the other side. And so I'm going to put a negative 2 in that little box. Next to the box, I'm writing my coefficients from the thing that is being divided. So I start with my coefficient for the x to the 4th, which is 4. Then I need my coefficient for my x to the 3rd, but there is no x to the 3rd. It skips over it. It's missing. You do have to have a coefficient for every exponent on the letter x. So if something is missing, if it's not there, that means the coefficient was 0. So do pay attention. It's in descending order, and you do have to have everything in there. So if it starts with an x to the 4th, you have to have an x to the 3rd, an x squared, an x to the 1st, and a constant. If you are missing any of those things, you'll need to fill those in with a space of 0. All right, let's draw that line and let's get started. I'm going to start by adding the 4 with the nothing that's underneath it. So I'm just going to drop the 4 straight down. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 0 plus negative 8 is also negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 2 is positive 16. 2 plus 16 is 18. 18 times negative 2 is negative 36. Negative 4 plus negative 36 is negative 40. And finally, negative 40 times negative 2 is positive 80. And 12 plus 80 is 92. And we are now ready to write down our final answer. For the final answer, we do like to start on the right side and work our way to the left. So a little bit different than what we normally do. Starting with the 92, which I'm going to section off, my 92 is my remainder. And so I'll remind you of what we learned last week about what to do with the remainder. My negative 40 will be my constant, my number that's by itself. And that means my 18 will have an x, my negative 8 will have an x squared, and my 4 will have an x to the 3rd. Notice that x to the 3rd is 1 less than x to the 4th. That's a good thing. For the remainder, remember that it just gets added at the end of the problem as a fraction, and you put it over whatever you were dividing by. So initially we were dividing by the x plus 2. That's what goes on the bottom of the fraction. And this is my final answer. This concludes our first video for today.